those are the two combinations as to how to get yourself to those 800s. So if you're somebody who's always asked yourself, how do I get to the 800s? That's the way. So I was talking to a friend of mine, right? And he was literally asking me, Huto, what is it that I gotta do to get to the 800s credit scores? And obviously I have a personal story, and for you guys who have obviously have been following me on YouTube, on the J Lobos channel, even on Instagram, which is actually, it's also J Lobos, if I'm not mistaken, which obviously I'll go ahead and leave the description there so you guys can go ahead and check it out and see it for yourself. But literally, I was able to actually get to the 800s, but I'm gonna be 100% transparent. It was more like a fluke. And the reason why I say that is just because when I first started establishing credit for myself, obviously being 6 years ago, when I first started the credit repair industry, the credit repair business, which is obviously where I'm at now, prior to that, I actually went through a phase of almost, I think I would say about 7-8 years when the economy had fallen. I was obviously a victim of housing, and I lost my job, and I was actually doing mortgages at the time. So I had really bad credit. You know, I was a young homeowner back then. At the age of 21, I had over $40,000 in credit card debt. I was making a lot of good money. My utilization was over 120, 130,000 available. So I was managing. I had a car, but I lost all of that. And through the process of working in Bank of America after the economy fell, they gave me the opportunity, which was great. You know, I didn't know if obviously if credit repair was real or not, and I always thought to myself, how could I get back to, like, you know, like the high sevens and stuff like that. So obviously after I left Bank of America, I ended up working for a company, obviously as an account executive doing credit repair. That's how this whole thing came about. And I started learning about credit, and I started thinking to myself, you know, obviously I have to get back in the game. If I'm doing something for other people of disputing negative items and helping people to increase their scores, it's only in my best interest for me to be in that same place, right? So I ended up doing that, and through that process, I started becoming authorized users on my mom's credit cards. And my mom, she's always been economy, no economy. That lady lives way under her means. Her home's almost paid off. Her cars, obviously, no car payments, no credit card debt. So she's had credit cards forever. So as I became an authorized user on her credit cards, you know, that started helping me out. So I started removing negative items from my credit report, things like that. I started adding secure credit cards on my credit report, and once all that had happened, you know, I started adding myself as authorized users. I did a few secure credit cards. Some of the negative information started getting deleted off my credit report, and I started obviously feeling really confident. And I would say about 4 years ago, obviously my credit had already been transforming itself of, you know, high sixes, low sevens, things like that. And it got to the point that I started getting myself into the mid 700s. My desire had always been, I've always bought my vehicles, but I've never leased. And I always heard really good things about leasing, maintenance, stuff like that. I wasn't a homeowner yet. I was renting a townhouse at the time, but nevertheless, I went into the dealership, and again, you'll check this out on my Instagram if you guys want to check it out. And I went into the dealership confident because I was in the mid to high sevens, but when they ran my credit, it came out at an 833 on Equifax, which I was super shocked. I was like, what the heck? I know there's different platforms. There's people that actually have that, you know, when you go into a dealership, we don't have access to that as consumers. You have to, obviously, dealerships, mortgage companies, banks, they all have, you know, different platforms. But I was so surprised to be at the 833. As a matter of fact, TransUnion got me at 842. And I think Experian was the lowest, like a 795 or something like that. And the guy was so shocked. He's like, we can't use TransUnion. And obviously, they mainly focus on Equifax anyways, because it was just too perfect. And I was kind of intrigued. I'm like, that's not my credit. Well, that's not my credit report. I need to take a look at it. And when I saw my name, and obviously if you go into my Instagram, I took a picture of it, and you see it at 833, the guy literally wanted to call the creditors to find out and to make sure that those were actually my accounts. And this wasn't some sort of a scam that I was actually pulling off. And to be honest with you guys, it was a fluke. And when I actually look at the report, I don't know what the heck happened, but most of my new accounts that I had been that I had activated as a secure credit card, or unsecured credit cards that were really young in age, for whatever weird reason, they didn't appear. None of my negative history appeared either, even though that I had done already a good job at deleting most of it, but I still had a few things in there. I had over $40,000 in credit card debt, multiple credit cards, loan, repo, foreclosure. I got all the bad stuff out, but for the most part, nothing came out on the report, with the exception of all the accounts that I had added myself as an authorized user on my mom's credit, which had been for 15, 12 years, whatever. So the length of time, the availability on her credit cards, not having anything negative, and none of the new history taken away, that's a crow that's crowing over here, not taken away from, because again, it's a combination of things. All of that positioned itself in a way that my scores were outstanding. And so to you guys out there, everybody's always asking me or questioning me, how do I get to the 800s? From personal experience, I've been there, but it wasn't something that I did intentionally. It actually just happened. I thank God for that. You know, I always tell you guys too, whenever you sign up, you have to have the intent of being so positive. And I promise you guys, those that do usually get the best results. I promise. The ones that come to skepticism, the ones that come in for whatever weird reason, maybe don't get the same type of results. Nevertheless, I've worked with clients that have gotten to the 800s, and the way that they've done it is because they've had an extensive amount of history on accounts that they've had. Either they've closed or they're still open. Maybe they've had a couple of blemishes, such as collections, medical collections, but they've had credit already for 15, 20 years. So how do you get to the 800s? Length of time and availability of credit. That's it. So obviously having a good blend, having a good mixture, having a mortgage, having installments, having revolving, it counts because it's 10%. Not running your credit when it's unnecessary, having less than 6 to 8 inquiries, that's a plus. But the utilization on the limits on your credit cards, having 80, 100,000 available lines of credits, and having history for 12, 15 years, those are the two combinations as to how to get yourself to those 800. So if you're somebody who's always asked yourself, how do I get to the 800s? That's the way. So how do we gain time if we don't want to wait? Add yourself as an authorized user on somebody's credit who has had credit already for multiple years. And what happens is, when you're adding yourself as an authorized user and you're taking advantage of that 10, 12 year range, what helped me out in my situation, obviously I had good credit, but it was astronomical good credit. People at the 830s, 840s, it's like a rare breed. That's like 2-3% in the whole United States. Probably 1% of the United States has that. And that happens by those two things. Having extensive, but remember, if you have new accounts, your credit takes that into consideration, and it doesn't allow you to take the full advantage of that. So in my particular case, those new accounts didn't reflect, only the old ones that have been, which are obviously my mother's, and the amount of limits at the time that I had combined was a lot. So that's what got me to the 800. So if you guys are there, interested in that, obviously focus on that. Do yourself work on that. So for you guys out there, obviously, if you found this video to be very informative, informational, and educational, go ahead and share, like, subscribe. I'm going to continue to share my experience as a credit repair business owner. I've obviously helped over tens of thousands of people achieve healthy credit. So stay tuned. Next video.